What is up, you guys? My name is Aubrey and this is my channel, and today we have some big news. And this is news that we've been waiting on now for about a month. And this big news is that the SBA has officially announced and officially opened up the EIDL program to more businesses, which means that if you are somebody who is interested in receiving a up to $15,000 grant, this video is for you because we have some big topics to cover. So let's get started. So as you guys know, last year with the CARES Act, we all began to know and understand and gain familiarity with the EIDL program. The EIDL program is a program that was offered by the SBA at the height of the pandemic, and a lot of the benefits of the EIDL program are still active today. There are three pieces of the EIDL program that you should know about. The EIDL loan, which is a low interest, really friendly termed loan. There is the EIDL targeted cash advance, which is a $10,000 cash advance that can go out to eligible businesses. And then there is a $5,000 cash advance that is meant to go out to some of the hardest hit businesses across the United States. Now, the last two of those programs, the EIDL targeted cash advance and the EIDL supplemental cash advance, these two programs are grant programs, which means that you do not have to pay the funds back, which means that they could be considered free money depending on the perspective that you look at it with. Now, up until now, both of these programs were invite only, and the way that the SBA determined who would be invited versus who wouldn't be invited is they pulled data based off of who applied for the EIDL loan before December 27th, 2020. So if you were somebody who applied for the EIDL loan after that date, then you were automatically put in line to potentially get invited to the EIDL targeted cash advance as well as the supplemental cash advance. In addition to having had applied to the EIDL loan program before December 27th, you also had to meet some additional criteria as well. For the $10,000 EIDL cash advance, you had to have been able to show a 30% gross revenue decline. In addition to be able to show a 30% gross revenue decline, you also had to be from a low income area. This was in order to be eligible for the $10,000 EIDL targeted cash advance. If you did not meet those two pieces of criteria, then you most likely did not receive an invitation from the SBA. And if you received an invitation but you didn't meet these pieces of criteria, chances are you were denied for the cash advance. For the $5,000 supplemental targeted cash advance, you had to have been able to show a gross revenue decline of 50%, and you also had to have been able to show that you come from a low-income community. Now, the low-income community is defined by Section 45D of the IRS code. There is actually a very helpful mapping tool that you can find on the SBA's website. I will include a link to that down in the description below. But that mapping tool will give you a good idea on whether or not you live in a low-income community and thus whether or not you would qualify for these programs. Now, despite the fact that these programs have been running full steam now for a couple of months, the SBA has still only distributed a small fraction of the total funds that have been allocated to the EIDL program as a whole. The EIDL Advance program has been allocated $30 billion in total funding, and according to the SBA, they've only distributed about $1.5 billion worth of funding. And the $5,000 supplemental targeted cash advance, that program has been allocated $5 billion, and yet only $500 million of those funds have been distributed. So the SBA has really been dropping the ball, falling short to the expectation of how these funds need to be distributed. The rollout has been slow, it has been inefficient. There are so many people who should qualify and yet they don't, or they are being denied, and a small tiny fraction of the total funds available have actually been distributed. So then that brings us to today, and that brings us to the SBA's decision to open up this program to more people to hopefully make the disbursement of these funds a bit more quickly and a bit more accessible to the general public. Earlier this month, the SBA announced that the EIDL cash advance was going to be opening up to the general public. That was kind of all of the information we had at that time, and it looks as though that day has officially come. In fact, the other day, the SBA had a call with a number of different journalists across a number of different news outlets, and on that call, the SBA administrator herself announced that as of today, the SBA EIDL programs are opening up to more applicants. And here's what you need to know. So first and foremost, the requirements for these two programs, the $10,000 program and the $5,000 program, they have not changed. You will still need to be able to show a 30% gross revenue decline, and you need to be able to show that you live in a low-income community if you're wanting to qualify for that $10,000 targeted cash advance. And alternatively, you have to be able to show a 50% gross revenue decline and that you live in a low-income community if you want to qualify for the $5,000 supplemental targeted cash advance. Now, it is possible to qualify for both of these. So if you have a gross revenue decline of more than 50%, then you could theoretically get $15,000 in total. There is up to $15,000 available in funding, so that is the maximum amount that you could receive. In addition to having to meet these pieces of criteria, you also have to apply for the EIDL loan in order to get in line for these two programs and in order to apply for these two programs. Basically, the application is the same, and in order to submit an application to the grant programs, you have to in turn apply for the loan. The great news here, though, is that you do not have to be approved for the loan, and you also don't have to accept the loan in order to be considered for the EIDL targeted cash advance or the supplemental targeted cash advance. So you do not have to accept or be approved for the loan in order to be considered for these $15,000 programs. That is huge news because this is something that caused quite a lot of issues this time last year with the original EIDL grant program. Now, I will be doing a video on how to apply for the EIDL loan step by step. That video will be coming tomorrow. So if you're interested in checking out that video, make sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so that you do not miss when that video drops, because that video will be a step-by-step how-to guide of how to apply so that you can increase your chances of getting approved for the EIDL cash advances. Now, the really big takeaway here is to drive home the fact that these programs are no longer invite only. Really, for the entire duration of 2021 thus far, these programs have been invite only, meaning you had to have received an email from the SBA in order to apply. And that is no longer the case. You don't have to receive an email. You don't have to wait for communications from the SBA. All you have to do is go onto the SBA's website, fill out the loan application, and then that is it. You have now officially applied for the EIDL grant. Now, one really important thing to note here is the fact that these programs are still very targeted. They may not be invite only, but that doesn't mean that they're open to the general public. They are just open to the eligible individuals to apply, not for like any business owner out there. Now, this is important because it means that there are still a lot of people that will not qualify for this. But if you're somebody that never received an email but you feel like you could be eligible, then this would be a great time to apply. Now, it is important to note the fact that even though this is no longer invite only, it is still very targeted. You still do have to meet requirements on gross revenue decline, and you also have to meet requirements on your own income and where you live. Do you live in a low income community or do you not? This is a huge factor that will be taken into account when determining if you're eligible for this program. Now, the targeted aspect of these programs will be very interesting to see how they play out in the coming months. Now, this is something that I plan on talking about in a standalone video in the next couple of days, so stay tuned for it. But there are a lot of lawsuits being filed against the SBA and what is being considered discriminatory actions against applicants and business owners across the country. There has been a number of lawsuits that have actually been cited against the SBA, saying that their targeted practices are unlawful and thus they cannot continue doing it. This, in fact, recently happened with the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. I had a video on this yesterday if you're interested in checking it out. And I think that it could possibly happen with the EIDL grant program as well. So there is a chance that the EIDL grant program could open up to more businesses. Ultimately, it's a big question that we don't know the answer to yet, but we probably will learn more in the near future. Regardless of the targeted aspect or not, the fact that this is opening up to applicants rather than invite only is a big deal. It is a step in the right direction, though we still do have a long ways to go until most business owners will be eligible for this program. This is still progress nonetheless. With that being said, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video and I hope it gave you some valuable insight regarding the EIDL program and it reopening for more than invite-only applications. Again, I will have a step-by-step video of this process coming out tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. But like always, if you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear your thoughts, so make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.